This Miami Heat team that lives and dies by the three-point shot has possibly found a brand new weapon from behind the three-point line, a newly developed skill for this player that we're accustomed to seeing in a Miami Heat jersey. We'll break down how this adds to the Miami Heat offense that needs it desperately, and also a concerning record for the Miami Heat this year against top 10 ranked teams in this NBA season. We'll break this all down on this episode of Heat Digest, where we create daily Miami Heat content. So if that interests you, subscribe to the channel, as almost 90% of you guys currently watching are not currently subscribed. We appreciate all your support. We're on the road to 1,100 subscribers. We're just a handful away. We appreciate all your support. Now let's get to it and break down this massive development for this Miami Heat team. It has something to do with Bam Adebayo. Now, we went through a stretch of games just recently where Bam Adebayo, his turnover numbers were extremely high. His free throw percentages were extremely low post All-Star break, and it felt like we were losing one of our key players, not to injury, but to confidence and overall play through a stretch of games, in the stretch of games that we desperately needed him due to the fact that we didn't have Butler, we haven't had Tyler Hero, we haven't had Kevin Love, who really plays those big power forward / center minutes when Bam has to take a rest, especially at the end of the first quarter or halfway through the first quarter, as well as we did not have Nikola Jovic last night and really the majority of the game Friday night. So Bam Adebayo, what happened? Well, he's a three-point marksman. That's what's going on. He's basically Duncan Robinson at 6'11". Bam Adebayo has made a three in each of his last 3 games. That matches his total over the 3 previous seasons combined. Yes, a three-point marksman, if you will, is Bam Adebayo. He's been really phenomenal as of late. The last 3 games, he's been really good. And if you look at his three-point percentages, he's been phenomenal. 1 of 1 in all 3 of the games, making the only threes he's taken in all 3 games, and none other bigger than the one he made just last night. It was the last shot of the game. It was released with about 0.6 of a second left. If you did not see it, it's all over the Miami Heat social medias, Instagram, Twitter. He basically called game on a shoots and ladders play run by the Miami Heat that resulted in a victory for the Heat over the Detroit Pistons for the second consecutive game, which is not only what the Miami Heat needed, but it seems like this is what Bam Adebayo needed as well, because now the confidence should be at an all-time high as we go into Philadelphia tonight for a massive game. But again, we'll get into that in just a minute. Let's break down how Bam Adebayo is legitimately a three-point marksman all of a sudden. Now, these are his totals for the regular season from the 2017-2018 season when he was first drafted out of Kentucky until now, his current season of 23-24. He has 4 made threes this year, 3 of them coming in his last 3 games. Again, this is not exactly what the Miami Heat needed, but it sure as hell is going to help due to the fact that, like I mentioned earlier, no Jimmy Butler, no Tyler Hero, no Kevin Love, and that's really the biggest one, is Kevin Love really plays such a significant role, not really just on offense, but for this Miami Heat team overall. His ability to stretch the floor, his ability to rebound and defend when Bam Adebayo has to take a break. Yes, Bam Adebayo, I would take Bam over Kevin Love, not only because of age, but because of the game they bring night in and night out every time. But Bam Adebayo, if he can add a three-point shot, just to think about the diversification that it adds to this Miami Heat team. If he's able to be on the floor and he and Kevin Love are possibly side by side, which I feel like is a big rarity for this Miami Heat team, that we don't normally see those 2 bigs playing next to one another. But if Bam adds a three-point shot and our ability to stretch the floor increases even more with the three-point shooting and the offensive talent we currently have on this Miami Heat team, yes, we do struggle a lot. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We do struggle immensely on the offensive end. Really a lot more than we probably should with the amount of talent, but especially as of late with the injuries and the lack of players we have, including Tyler Hero, including Jimmy Butler, including Jovic, including Kevin Love, who really is a bigger piece than it may seem like. This could be massive and a huge development for the Miami Heat, as yes, Bam Adebayo already does a great job in stretching the floor. Yes, I'm not arguing that, but a lot of his shots, that his stretch shots, are long twos. They're free throw line extended, if not just face-up jump shots from the free throw line. Yes. Okay. So if you can add another foot or two where he's stepping out just a step farther and that big, that it's because it's normally the opposing team's center, not their power forward guarding Bam Adebayo. The floor and the paint opens up even more dramatically for this Miami Heat team, who do such a great job, not just this season, but for the last 10 years, ever since, or even longer than that, ever since Eric Spoelstra has been involved in the Miami Heat coaching staff. The ability to set backdoor screens, elevator screens, the ability to move without the basketball has been so significant. And if Bam Adebayo can add to this game where he becomes a scary three-point threat to these teams, just think about how wide open this game will become for the Miami Heat and the offense. I feel like it's not only adding a game or an ability to Bam Adebayo's game, but adding to the Miami Heat team overall and the offense overall for the Miami Heat, which is exactly what we need as we've been struggling, especially against teams ranked in the top 10, which we're going to break down right now. As this came out, it's going all over social media, not only Twitter and Instagram, but Heat Reddit. It is being abused, as well as the NBA Reddit, and it should be, as it's not a great record for the Miami Heat. Now, these are every team's record versus top 10 teams. Now, when the top 10 teams is obviously, it's going off of record because we do not have a standings, like an overall standings for like we do in college basketball and such, where every team gets a ranked and it's a national rank 1 through 25. This is the top 10 ranked teams based off of record, and obviously you have OKC at 14-5, really doing a great job against these top 10 teams. Teams like Milwaukee and Boston with 11-7, and if you go all the way to the bottom, the last row, 3-18. The Miami Heat, the first team listed at the bottom row, 3-18, 21 games played against top 10 teams. Seems like a hell of a lot more than a lot of these other teams have played up to this point in this NBA season. But again, 3 wins and 18 losses is absolutely horrific, and there's really no excuse. The Miami Heat offense, we've addressed this earlier, is not great. It flattens out, it stalls out, and there's a lot of bad moments for the Miami Heat, and we lose a lot of close games that really we shouldn't be losing. And yes, they're competitive games, but competitive losses are still losses no matter what. Here's a much easier and broken down way to look at it. Against the East, the Miami Heat are 25-17, 8 games above 500 against the Eastern Conference. And then if you look at the West, and obviously the West has had a reputation to be the much stronger conference, especially over the last handful of years, the Miami Heat are 12-13 overall against the Western Conference. And now it's broken down by division. There's a few teams I want to point out because they are the juggernauts, if you will, in the NBA. First things first, the Northwest Division. We are 2-7 in the top 3 teams: Denver, Minnesota, Oklahoma City. Those 3 teams are basically the 3 best teams in the entire National Basketball Association, excluding the Boston Celtics in the East. But again, we're dealing with the Western Conference really quick. Denver, we're 0-2, haven't beaten them. Minnesota, 0-2, have not beaten them. Oklahoma City, 0-2, have not beaten them. Our only 2 wins coming against the Portland Trail Blazers and the Utah Jazz. And then going on, in the Southwest Division, thankfully, we've beaten the majority of these teams. We did lose to Dallas one time. That game did come just about 10 days ago. And then in the Pacific Conference, we've beaten Golden State, but we've lost to the LA Clippers and the Phoenix Suns both times that we've played. Both of those teams, not really what you want to see, because the teams that we've listed off in Dallas, Denver, Minnesota, Oklahoma City, the LA Clippers, and Phoenix, all teams that we are winless against this NBA season, are all legitimate contenders in the Western Conference and really in the entire NBA. They are great teams. They seem like they have a legitimate chance to make a serious championship run, and this year the Miami Heat have not been able to win a game against those teams. Yes, there's a lot of competitive games. We've played the Clippers. The last time we played the Clippers, we lost by 4 points, 110 to 106, or 110 to 106, I believe was the final score of that game. A very competitive game that we lost down the stretch. Denver, obviously, we played 2 times in the last month. Very competitive games, but again, falling short. Minnesota and Oklahoma City, we've played extremely recent. Again, as soon as we've played Dallas, we have very competitive again, but we can't control people like SGA and the rest of that high intensity, high explosive Oklahoma City offense that really just did a great job this season. And then for the Eastern Conference, two teams we have to highlight, the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks, both in the Atlantic Division. 0-3 against Boston. We lost the season series to them. Only one time this year, those games were not competitive. The other two games were extremely competitive, but again, competitive losses are still losses. And then against the New York Knicks, winless against them. And that is going to be huge as they are just 2.5 games above us in the Eastern Conference standings as of right now. And then finally, the last one I will highlight is the Milwaukee Bucks. 1-2 against the Milwaukee Bucks. Our only win came in dominating fashion, 123-97. But the other two losses, high-scoring games, which we don't normally see from the Miami Heat, and they resulted in another set of competitive losses. And again, hate to be a broken record, but competitive losses are still losses, and they aren't going to get the job done for the Miami Heat. Now, if we look at the Eastern Conference standings currently, the Miami Heat overall are 37-30. Not great, but they're doing well. They're only a half game back of the 6th seed Indiana Pacers. And after tonight's slew of games that involves the Knicks playing in Golden State, the Pacers hosting the Cleveland Cavaliers, Miami going to Philadelphia, tomorrow could look drastically different from what we're currently looking at just right now. But if we look at the record, 17-15 at home, 20-15 on the road, 11-3 in the division, which we love to see, including winning the season series against the Orlando Magic. So if that came down to a tie based off a record with the Magic, we would win the tiebreaker, thankfully, but we have to get to a tie first. And then in the conference, like we pointed out earlier, 25-17 against the Eastern Conference this year for the Miami Heat. Overall, not great for the Miami Heat, losing really the better teams in the NBA, beating up on the not so good ones. But again, losses are losses, whether they are competitive or not. Yes, you can grow from a good or a bad loss or even competitive losses, but again, you need more wins, especially in a race like we are currently in the Eastern Conference like this one. So that's going to wrap up this episode of Heat Digest. Thanks for watching. You guys should see me in just a few hours after hopefully the Miami Heat beat the Philadelphia 76ers and the Eastern Conference gets turned on its head with a bunch of wins and losses from a bunch of teams competing for the Eastern Conference playoff race. Thanks for watching this episode of Heat Digest. I'll see you guys on the next one.